one of the things that I noticed when having been a volunteer at Fighting Words and then been a teacher, that teachers tend to come in and are like, okay, we're going to be focusing on spelling, we're going to be focusing on structuring, we're going to be, and I think they expect maybe a bit more
structure
of a bit more of a like school environment, a lesson rather than like an experience or a much more relaxed experience than they would have like in the classroom.
And I think there's that importance of the teacher stepping back and allowing the students to take, centre stage. It's their opportunity, and it's for us to step back and to listen. And I think that's one of the key things, I think, that I got from Fighting Words throughout the years is the importance of listening, the importance of silence from my perspective as a teacher, but also the importance of allowing the students just to express themselves without judgment. I'm not looking at spelling, I'm not looking at structure, I'm not going to judge your story in terms of the kind of language you're using or anything like that. The editing will come later. The structure and the rigor around how it comes together will come later. But for now, it's just about writing your story.
And I think for a lot of the kids, it's their first, let's say if their first time of Fighting Words, it might be their first time of experiencing a sort of creative outlet or creative process that hasn't been school based or hasn't been school centered and hasn't been as structured. It's new and it's fresh and I know like it's magical. That's something that you had talked about earlier on about like the kids and the sort of awe that they have when they are.
The other thing is another aspect of the teacher walking in is maybe the feelings of wanting to control the discipline or the volume when they're collaborating at the start of the workshop. And like you said, Mary, like it's just to step back from that, because the opening kind of piece of the workshop is allowing them to kind of, it's nearly a social experience too, and they don't always know each other very well, and taking the step back and allowing for whatever the volume, whatever the the language to a certain degree, it's an opportunity for the teacher to see them in a different light, and also for the students to see themselves in a different light. I've had experiences over the years of a student who may never really speak up in class, but that will pipe up in a workshop, and you can see other students' reactions. They haven't heard the student share anything either, and like those moments are really important as well. So to let the discipline go as well as a teacher, it can be hard and daunting walking in there having never done it before. But just let a little more freedom is so important for the kind of social aspect of it as well.
Yeah, and I totally get what you mean by sitting there and being uncomfortable, because that you kind of feel like responsible for them, on some level. But at the same time, it is so important just to give them that space. And I love in Fighting Words the way the ownership is handed over to them totally. And it's not like there's an expert in the room saying, this is how you write a story, there's a formula, it's ABC. But like they're really given that ownership and trusted, that they have this, and that really we're there to listen to them and to enjoy their story. But I think you're dead right, it's really about taking that step back and letting them at it.
And the validity of their stories. At the end of the workshop, when it's just asked, will anyone like to share? And it's, that first student that shares, and then that it kind of opens a floodgate that others will share because they see that their stories are seen as valid, valued. And it's not that it's, that's really good and very well done.
It's not like a pat on the back.
It's not, it's kind of that the facilitator has really listened and has picked out, I love the way you used that expression, or you really brought in that character really well, or that was really amusing. And they pick specific features out and say, that's what's valid there. It's that kind of validation that's that's great for the students because they feel like that it's meaningful. It's not, as you say, the pat on the back.
And I think what you're saying there as well about like validation, and it's something about you said earlier on about like the time and like giving the space and stuff. I think it's the same for teachers then as well, like for them to come in and observe it and be like, okay, well actually like this is feasible within like our group or whatever. And I know that like from a primary school setting, maybe it's slightly different, but that like, you know, you are, I don't know, can I say baiting, but like you're baiting through like trying to get all this different stuff, all these different topics covered in one day, when actually like you can take a step back. And I think it's something that naturally, when you talk about sort of a creative module or bringing sort of creative methodologies into an academic setting or into a school setting, like there are things that you probably do naturally all the time anyway, if you had the time and if you can make the time, like the time is there. And it's a time a lot, but like I think the time is there. And if you can see the benefit of that, and I think that's great about teachers coming into a Fighting Words workshop because they can see it themselves and it validates almost then to them, oh actually a creative approach is something that we can take in class.
Yeah.
And having that atmosphere, that sort of welcoming atmosphere, that atmosphere where people feel kind of at ease sharing their work, sort of like, and like the standard is irrelevant. It's more about their personal voice, and because you know everyone has a unique personal voice, and it's so lovely to hear creative work from your students for that reason, because I think you get to know them a little bit better. You get to know them on a different level. So it's not about whether it's good or bad. It's just kind of getting to know them a bit better and sharing and the development, the personal development that comes through that. And I kind of think that it underlines how learning is an experience rather than just, I'm going to chuck you this knowledge and you're going to chuck it down on a piece of paper. But it's really about experience and it's about interaction.
It's like a transferable skill then that they can bring, or like a confidence in that one experience, or like in a creative experience will then transfer to maybe trying something else in a different subject outside of their comfort zone as well. That like it doesn't even have to just be about English, or that it can transfer then to other
Disciplines.
other disciplines, other experiences in life.
That moment where they begin to share, and you will always have those students who are forthcoming, and you know they're standing up straight away, you know, and the kind of this lovely domino effect that has on their confidence, and then eventually they all kind of, you know, that they're all, you know, willing to share their piece. I love that it comes after that period of just silence. Where I remember the first, you know, maybe the first 3 or 4 times where there was just silence and just writing, where it was incredible, you know, seeing all of them, you know, heads down or just chatting kind of quietly with the volunteers or to each other in their groups, and just being kind of fascinated at how just like letting go completely, allowing for that silent writing time in that lovely space, and that moment where they share coming afterwards kind of justifies that lovely long silent moment of creativity, and there's always an applause after everybody reads, and there's a feeling that they've really been heard, like you said, you know, they feel so valued.
That's it, or even that, like, so just on that point about the kids, like that there are always children, and it's the same in like the classroom, that there's always that one kid who's like hand up, knows it all, and then there's the kids who like sit back and take it in. I think what's great about the Fighting Words workshop and that sort of approach is that even if a child, now it might be different in the secondary school setting, but in the primary school setting, it doesn't matter if the child isn't confident enough to share, but they have like collaborated in this. They still come out at the end with an ending to a story that they have helped or they have collaborated with. So it's lovely. It's in a way you can take positives and negatives, but that like kids get such a thrill out of sharing it, and they also then can get a thrill out of just having been part of the process. And we were talking earlier on about the connection with the volunteers, that like they know that their volunteer has, even if they're not reading it out loud, that their volunteer has read the story, has taken an interest in the story, and has engaged with them on that as well, or on that level too.
When you were talking about time, earlier on you spoke about time, And you talked about this idea of the collaboration. And one of the things that you brought up there, Trish, was about space. And this idea of the space and the way the space is configured. And that it allows for students that they're not sitting in rows writing, but that they're sitting in a group. And although they're writing at the second level, they're writing their own story, but they are sitting in a group and they can share with each other and listen to each other. So you're building trust amongst a group so that they feel that they can share their voice and that their voice is going to be listened to, but also that you're given it time. And you mentioned earlier, you know, we're constantly trying to move through a curriculum because we have so much to get through. But we realise when we take ourselves out of the classroom and we observe our students, the value of time and the time that we give our students to write. And then when we bring it back to the classroom, I suppose, trying, you know, at second level, I suppose you're looking at a 40-minute or a 1-hour class, and you know, but that time given to writing, to redrafting, to working on a piece is so valuable because, number one, the kind of piece that you will come out with is of a higher standard because they've really worked it, but also from the point of view of their self-esteem, the culture of trust you've built in the classroom, and just the value of their voice and the fact that they feel that their voice, as you said, has been listened to is just incredible.
And I think to give time also to sharing that work, like whether it be you reading out extracts of different stories and going, isn't this a wonderful opening? Or reading a story and saying, right, like what was good about that? Like what did you enjoy about that? And just getting that buzz in the classroom where they're actually looking forward to getting their essays back because it becomes this kind of experience of sharing. And I think they learn from each other, like no more than novelists learn from reading other novelists' work. Like I think students are the same, like they hear a story and they model and they learn things and they kind of go, oh, well, I could do that too, and I'm going to give that a go. So I think that's a really lovely, and you begin to hear the personal voices, and some people who prefer to write in, you know, a particular genre, and other people who prefer to write kind of something really quirky and off the wall, and just to really begin to appreciate those voices within your class. And I think it can be a lovely atmosphere, and then that feeds into when you're reading, you know, and you can be kind of referring back to.
And I think you've touched on something there about like different voices and like how different kids work. I remember hearing on the radio, this is a couple of years ago, but that they were talking, you know, like there's emphasis on group work, and that like the more like adults, like some kids and adults just don't, like they don't work well in a group, and not because they're not sociable, but because they can't think. And so the Fighting Words, I think, and that sort of creative approach caters to both the children who can work in or want to work in a group, and those children who actually just want a little bit of quiet reflection time before they come and bring like a story to the volunteer or to their teacher. And it goes back then again to that sort of time and space that you're giving your students as well.